Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another Mojo Loop convening. Always exciting to be back in person, and this is our second one back, so it's great to see folks. So we've been at this for several years now, and you know, as new folks come into the community, it's always good to sort of go back to the beginning and talk a little bit about the underlying principles that are a bit of the why Mojo Loop came to be, and what we're trying to do with it. So I'm Matt Bowen. I'm from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation on our Financial Services for the Poor team. We were the start of this journey, and it's been about 10 years, work, and maybe a little bit more, working in the financial inclusion space. We started this work with kind of a set of principles, thinking about how to make a payment system work for everyone, and most especially the poorest. Yeah, no problem. Okay, there we go. I felt like I could hear myself. Is this better? Folks hear better? Okay, great. So as we sort of got into that work, we started to find a set of principles that kind of emerged from the work. And so we called those the level 1 principles, and I'll take you through those today after a little bit of quick introduction to the Gates Foundation and sort of how we think about things. So our goal is by 2030 to ensure that 80% of the adults in the world and 60% of those who are, you know, sort of in the poorest group, those who live on less than $2.50 a day, use a digital account, and important not just have an account, but use it, and use it for more than just P2P. So this needs to be sort of a vibrant piece of their economic lives, if you will. And right now the numbers, and this is a little bit dated, but you know, up from 50% and 22% respectively. And we're also really shooting at eliminating the gender gap in financial inclusion. It's, you know, overwhelmingly shown by evidence that money in the hands of women is more powerful than money in the hands of men for improving household welfare. So women tend to spend money on things like food and education and healthcare and the like at a higher pace than men do. So you know, one of our big principles, we've got it written up big on the wall at the home office in Seattle, is all lives have equal value. And this is really expressed in, you know, our 30 or so programs that include healthcare and education and the like. But we have several programs, and this is one of them, that are really focused at reduction of poverty. So, you know, we've got about you know, almost 2 billion people still that are underbanked or unbanked, and need those services to improve their lives and work their ways out of poverty. We know that it's expensive to be poor, right? So the financial services that folks do access are, you know, often the most expensive services because they aren't well known to the financial system. They don't have a history, they don't have a footprint. And so when businesses need to work with them, they think of them as fairly risky, and risk always brings greater charge. So a good system can help folks have a financial identity and access services at a more reasonable cost. We're very supportive of a variety of interventions from governments and private sector, as well as you know, other philanthropies and the like. But we think, you know, sort of multimodal approach to this really is important to make sure that it has the right impact. no surprise, we're focused on digital technology with, sort of the DNA of Bill and Melinda Gates coming from Microsoft. They have a fantastic understanding of technology and how to deliver at scale. And they brought that, sort of understanding and drive to us at the foundation. So we're very focused on delivering through digital at scale. Important statistic, and I don't like to focus on too many statistics, but great study from McKinsey, and this is a few years back now, suggested that adding the folks, the 1.6 billion to the formal economy had the potential to add 3.7 trillion USD to GDP in emerging markets by 2025, and we're on the way. I don't think we're quite there, of course, but we're definitely on the way. So this is, financial inclusion is really not only an anti-poverty strategy, but really a catalyst for economic growth and economic development. So as we think about making interventions in markets and helping out, we kind of came up with this model that we call the R2A2 model. So rules, rails, accounts, and apps. And things start at the rules level, and that's a bit where you'll see level one coming across as I talk through the principles. The rails really are things like Mojaloop that allow for technical connectivity between players and ways to connect. And we think these are great spots for collaboration. And this tends to be where we intervene and try to help make that collaboration possible and easy and low cost. And then up in the competition space, accounts and apps, we think that banks and non-banks and third parties that are in the ecosystem, can and should vigorously compete for business and innovate both at the account and app level to make sure that the services reach folks in a way that's meaningful to them and helpful in their lives. So, and I should say, and I'll echo what Kim said at the beginning, this thing stopped working, that I'm more than happy to take questions anywhere along the way. So just raise a hand or shout out or however you feel like engaging. But I've given this presentation probably more than 100 times, so it won't go an hour unless folks have a lot of good questions, which is fine by me as well. So the clicker has stopped working. There we go. All right. So the level one project goals, and you'll see a lot of principles that we'll go through, but they really boil down to kind of two things. One is getting a low price for the services to the users. And the second is positively impacting the lives of poor people, right? So to get to low price, you first need low cost, because while they're not always closely connected, price and cost, if you don't have low cost, it's hard to get to low price. It has to be safe. So if your well-designed system allows for folks to have their money stolen, then it's not going to be low cost for very long, and it's got to be used, right? So none of these systems are that inexpensive to run. So you've got to spread the cost over a lot of transactions, and so the transactions the systems need to be used a lot. And to be used, of course, they need to be useful. So that means including the use cases that are the things that people want to do, and we'll get into those in just a moment. It's got to be inclusive. So, not just banks, not just mobile money providers, not just fintechs, but all of those working together. And it's got to be ubiquitous, right? The notion that anybody can pay anybody is really important to make all of this work. So in launching into the principles, and this will start with kind of the scheme design and governance, right? So low cost. right? So the use of the platform is very low cost to the participating financial service providers. And we'll get through a variety of ways that it should be low cost. One is it's operated as a not-for-loss utility. So the notion that the hub in the center would be a place that drives a lot of profit or creates a lot of sort of economic value for itself is not the point of this. It's really intended to run in the center and really optimize the businesses of the financial service providers that connect to it as direct participants. And that way those costs, the incentives stay towards keeping the costs low. Interoperable. So critical that banks and mobile money providers and fintechs and the like are all able to connect together, and customers there of each of them can pay one another. The services that we're kind of focused on really started in Kenya with M-Pesa, and they've got a great market where they've got very high market share, and so I've said many times it's a little bit of a mixed blessing that they came about first, because everybody wanted to emulate them and wanted to be the next M-Pesa, but very few markets have that sort of first mover advantage or that sort of natural monopoly that they had. And so I've said many times, if you don't have a monopoly in payments in your market today, you're not going to get one. And so in order to get to a model where everybody can pay everybody, interoperability is critical to get there. There was a good study by the GSMA that suggested you have to be able to reach 85% of customers before a large group of merchants will start to get interested in accepting the payments digitally. So interoperability is definitely one of the keys, and Mojaloop obviously is an enabler of that. So equal ownership opportunity, right? So direct participants should all have the opportunity to own part of the scheme and participate in that economic value that's produced by them. And we say, alternately, a scheme operated by the government for the benefit of everyone is also equally valuable. And I see a couple of folks coming in. This is the same presentation as yesterday for those who were at the CC Hub. So just to make sure folks have the right expectations. So third-party providers. So this includes, sort of aggregators, processors, Forex providers, and that sort of organization should be, sort of permitted and accounted for in the scheme. And then participant engagement, right? So folks, whether they have ownership or not, really should have the opportunity to participate in the governance and give, sort of direction to the scheme and the scheme rules. There we go. So we are talking about push and real-time transactions. So these are sort of not card or check or ACH payments, but sort of immediate payments. They're irrevocable, which means not that there's no redress, but that once a payment is done, it's done. Similar to a cash payment, if I hand you $10, there's no string on that I can use to pull that money back. And this works similar to cash, right? And that gives confidence for merchants and other players to, if I come in and I buy a bottle of water, I don't then, I can't go and say, oh, I didn't mean to buy that bottle of water. I want my money back. And somehow my money comes back, right? That doesn't mean there's not redress, because I could go back to the merchant and say, turns out this is sparkling water and I want it still. So I'd like to, give this back. And if the merchant's agreement, there's can be another transaction in which they refund your money. That's all fine and not sort of outside of the principles, but each transaction is sort of its own thing and is done, sort of immediately. Generally, we think of these transactions being done in good funds. A big part of getting to lowest possible cost is eliminating risk. And so settlement risk or credit risk and the like can add cost to the system. So we think of mostly these things operating in good funds. Obviously, you can sort of layer credit on top of that, and that's okay. But one would expect when using credit that there's some additional cost to it. Settlement. So settlement should happen same day or faster. So this is again to sort of get cost out of the system. Obviously, as we all know, money now is worth more than money later, and banks are really good at managing this principle. So unsettled money is basically accruing cost and risk. So the more quickly the settlement happens, the lower cost the system is and the better. So use cases for scale. So as we talked about, this has to be useful and it has to be used a lot in order to get to impact and low cost. So it should include, P2P is kind of the obvious one, but the ability to do merchant payments is the one that really drives scale, right? I think we all know. Oh, there we go. All right. Is that better? Okay. Sorry, I keep getting chastised for using the microphone wrong, but I can hear it pretty loudly up here. So, but if folks have any trouble hearing, just raise a hand or let me know. So use cases critical to get the usage that we need, and merchant payments are the ones that are the ones that happen the most, right? So as often as you might send somebody money or receive a paycheck or a government benefit, you buy stuff way more than that, and that really drives most of the volume in these systems, and certainly most of the potential volume. But you've got to keep sort of bulk payments in mind. You've got to also have sort of the cash in, cash out capabilities in order to make it a very useful and relevant system that can be impactful in people's lives. And fraud management, right? So as I said, a system that enables poor people to have their money stolen at scale is not what we're looking for, right? So, there's an opportunity, we think, with a hub operating a fraud management set of services that is better at catching fraud more quickly than just those fraud services operated by financial service providers. Though the one at the hub wouldn't substitute for those, and for those at the financial service provider, and wouldn't sort of change the liability and the obligations of those players in the market. There we go. So we think these systems should work in sort of regulated and be regulated, work in national fiat money. So, I'm not taking shots at any of the cryptocurrencies, but it is sort of true that the stability of fiat money in most markets is sort of more predictable and helps folks more, much more relevant, especially to poor, than sort of third-party currencies that might come in and be exciting and interesting, but they're probably less helpful for the financial inclusion market than for speculators and the like, and as well as things like wholesale banking, right? Those those things might be quite valuable for lowering the costs of some wholesale banking things, but not so great for retail banking. So supervision. So the scheme enables regulators to monitor in near real time, just because it's a central point of all of that information. The scheme should be used by the government, right? So not only for social benefit payments and the like, but also for salaries, for accepting tax payments and fees and license payments and the like. The government using it lends a great deal of gravitas and legitimacy to a payment system. Licensing. So if I wasn't clear before, banks and non-banks alike should be permitted to participate and do so directly and interoperate and connect their customers together. Tiered KYC. So this is one where we think of tiered KYC going along with tiered accounts, right? So the immediacy of wanting to make a payment to somebody and using one of these use cases can be impactful to getting people into the system and getting them to use it. But when I want to make that payment, say I need to send some money to my mother or something, if I now have to go to a bank, go to an agent, take a ride somewhere, get a bunch of documentation about myself in order to open an account, I might just choose to use some other, sort of less beneficial way to make that payment. But the ability to immediately open an account, on my phone, even if it's at a very low tier, can help pull me into the system and get me using it. And so we think of a tier 0 as, nearly anonymous, but with very low account limits, right? So I can only send so much, I can only send so often, I can only have so much of a balance, et cetera. And then as I have the opportunity, and as the system has sort of proven its value to me, I can go into into a bank branch, into an agent, et cetera, give more information about myself, and get higher tier accounts with higher limits and more capabilities. There we go. So fees, right? So the end user experience. Fees should be very, very low, even 0 sometimes, right? So a lot of these services are adjacent to things that folks actually want, right? No one wants to make a payment. They want the thing that they're getting for the payment. And so we think the value is and should be in sort of the thing that they're getting, and that's sort of where the fees and the like should be set, and not in the payment themselves. Pricing transparency. So key to be able to see how much you're spending before you spend it. Seems kind of obvious, but in a lot of systems, you'll see, here's the price and you pay it, and then turns out there was a fee put on top of it. Sometimes it's presented right after you've made the commitment for the transaction, and sometimes you don't learn it till a fair bit later. So we think it's really important to be able to see the full price of what you're buying, or the money you're sending, before you actually make the commitment to do so. This is particularly important in international transfers where there's money exchange and currency differences, because a lot of times the fees are might be low, but then the forex rate might be bad, and being able to really see that and show transparency to that is critical to especially newer consumers in those spaces that don't have the opportunity to sort of shop that widely or that often. So user interface design should be, sort of intuitive, well done. We know that, a lot of these things are done on low cost devices, not smartphones. And so Getting the user interface right isn't necessarily easy, but the value of it is significant. And thinking about newer methodologies of interacting with a financial system, we've seen voice recognition and the ability to interact in your own language, by voice rather than through reading. These are things that can expand the ability to feel empowered with your money and really engage with the system in a meaningful way. And with low cost devices, we know smartphones are coming. They're sort of inevitable, but the poorest continue to use feature phones and probably will for a while. From my own personal opinion is the big barriers are around battery life. So if I don't have ready access to electricity every day, then a device that doesn't last more than a day on a charge is not very helpful for me. So battery life of sort of a week or so, which is sort of what older feature phones had, is probably pretty appealing to that crowd and will be for a long time. And the other is sort of ruggedness, right? So if I drop a device and it breaks, that's not very useful for me, versus a device that if I drop it, it might get dirty and I can just sort of rinse it off. So we need to continue to make these services available through low cost devices. And we do find that even on smartphones, most transactions are still done through the USSD channel. And so, which is sort of native to all phones and quite available on feature phones, and how those are usually those services are usually delivered. So access points, important to be able to interact with the system, at cash in, cash out points, agents, banks, bank branches, ATMs and the like, as well as, at merchants, right? So that's probably the most ubiquitous and the one that again drives most of the value. And then notifications. So, if I'm a end user and anytime I make a transaction, I might get any number of notifications that transaction happened, right? So I made a payment, I received a payment, et cetera. So it's one of those things that we think of as particularly important for inclusion of women, right? So, if I receive a payment from the government, say, and I get, multiple notifications or notifications that I can't control, then that sort of, I lose my autonomy. I have the opportunity at least to lose my autonomy over these payments, right? They can be, people can see that I received them. They can demand that they be forwarded on, et cetera, right? So having control over when I'm notified that I've received a payment, or when I make a payment, is key to the user experience. There we go. So in the system design and the technologies, so this is Mojaloop, right? So appropriate technologies that support secure, high volume, low cost, real-time payments, that are secure and protect user privacy. One of our key principles, and as we sort of found the market not having, especially the low cost portion of that equation, we felt like we needed to make an intervention, which is sort of part of the birth of Mojaloop. Identifiers and directory, right? So again, for inclusion and making this system really work for everybody, having the ability to use more than just a phone number as your identifier is really important, right? So be they national identifiers or, email addresses or the like, expanding that particularly beyond phone number is critical. So and phone number is just can be problematic because it opens me up to other contacts that I don't necessarily want. So if I'm, if I have to give a merchant my phone number in order to buy something from them, I don't want that merchant later calling me, sending me text messages, harassing me in those ways, right? And that can be particularly important for women. So systems components. So a central platform that has, sort of embodies the scheme rules, provides, sort of that switching, routing, directory services, settlement, fraud management services, and the like, critical to making all of this work. And all of these should be, sort of built with a common core. So we've got the Mojaloop API. We've got, we talk about, ISO 20022 and ISO 8583 as sort of banking standards that are often used. So being able to connect all of these through that common core just makes the system much more valuable, along with additional protocols like QR codes and et cetera, that you might wrap around the system to make it more connected to folks. And then, systems connections, right? So it connects not only to domestic, there we go. So I was reminded not too long ago that, while price is really important, it's also important that the service actually work, right? And it's got to be up and available basically 24/7. So a system that doesn't work when you need it in order to make payments, folks quickly lose confidence and start looking for alternatives. So enabling programs and user education, things that pull people into the ecosystem, show them how to use it, how to drive value, how to make it impactful in their lives, need to be part of the equation for how we think about delivering these services, right? So many of these services we're trying to deliver to the poorest who haven't used these before. And so thinking of, multiple ways to pull them in and educate them on the usefulness of this is, quite important. Data privacy, I think, is, people understand that much better today than they did when we started down this road, but making sure that I'm not exposing my data through my payments interactions is quite important. That's data that really needs to be kept safe. And then having the ability to know which of your customers are women and being able to share that information out so that we know sort of how much that gender gap is persisting or how much we've done to eliminate it, also quite important. So, and that is the end of the principles. I'm more than happy to take questions here at the end as well. But there are some resources that are out there in the market that kind of help folks to understand these. We've got, we have a website called level1project.org that goes into a ton of detail on all of this, even more than I have today. We have labs, we have, obviously the Mojaloop community and all of the content there. So the World Bank has a set of principles in PAFI. The Bank of International Settlement has a lot of content out there as well to help. So there's a lot out there to help accelerate your journey. So If there aren't any questions, then I'll wrap up and we'll have a break until I think about 10 o'clock when we get started. Yeah, very good. All right. Thanks, everybody. Welcome again and look forward to a great week.